Hello everybody! I just realized that I never talked about the other things I read in November. I did a nonfiction November wrap-up, but I actually read some comics and some other short stuff that I haven't talked about yet. So I'm going to endeavor to do this pretty quickly. Let's talk about the comics and manga first. I read volumes 1 and 2 of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I actually read the updated versions of chapters 1, 2, and 3 on Tumblr. Oseman publishes this publicly on Tumblr first, and then they're coming out in kind of revised, cleaned up editions in print. So I read the first 3 chapters, which constitutes volumes 1 and 2, and I really enjoyed this. It is like a contemporary queer teen romance in a way. It is about 2 teenage boys at an all-boys school in England, Charlie and Nick. Charlie has always known that he was gay, and after he came out he went through a brief period of bullying, but he's actually quite well liked at school now. And Nick is kind of a jock, or at least that's what Charlie thinks initially. They kind of get thrown together for a school thing and then realize they like hanging out, they like being friends, and they might be more than that. I believe that this is basically the backstory for these 2 characters who have appeared probably as adults in other stories by Oseman, and so far it's just freaking adorable. I've really enjoyed it, and I just like the writing of it. I like the art style and being able to read it online and everything. It's really, really good. So yeah, I'm not really sure why I picked this one up other than I probably saw Claire was reading it and thought, well, Claire usually reads comics that I am interested in, so why not? After that, I read Fruits Basket and Other Volume 3 by Natsuki Takaya. This is the conclusion to this mini-series, which is sort of a follow-up to Fruits Basket, and I don't have good things to say about it, unfortunately. I'm a big fan of Fruits Basket, and I generally just read this because, hey, it's a Fruits Basket tie-in, and I like Natsuki Takaya's work, so why not? It really did not deliver what I thought it was going to, and I don't think it was done particularly well. So if you're reading this expecting to see the grown-up versions of people like Haru and Kyo and Tove and everything, you're not going to. As far as I know, none of them ever appear in this. They're mentioned, they're kind of off the page a couple of times, but you never actually see them. It was a rushed and poorly paced plot that was far too similar to the plot of Fruits Basket. It wasn't original in any way, and there were far too many characters. I could never keep any of them straight. There was never a character list anywhere, so I could never remember people's names or who their parents were, how they were related, and eventually just kind of gave up. No. I didn't hate any of these volumes, including the last one, while I was reading it, but every time I got to the end, I would go, well, that actually wasn't objectively good. Which is not what I wanted to think about the series, but yeah, I don't necessarily recommend this at all. Even if you're a big Fruits Basket fan, I don't think it's gonna really do much for you. Next is The Midwinter Witch by Molly Ostertag. This is another 3rd and final comic in a series. This series is about a young boy named Aster. He comes from a family of witches and shapeshifters. All of the women are witches and all of the men are expected to become shapeshifters. Only thing is, Aster knows that he is a witch. He does not want to be a shapeshifter. So the first 2 volumes, without any spoilers, he pursues that dream and kind of, perseveres through his family's misgivings, and he does start learning witchcraft officially. In this last volume, Aster and his 2 friends go to his family's annual reunion, where there's going to be a contest for the children, a contest for the young shapeshifters and then one for the young witches. And Aster wants to enter into the witches one, though he will be the only boy to do so, and his extended family really isn't cool with that. One of his friends who was introduced in the previous volume, I don't want to talk about her too much because spoilers, but she definitely has some of her own issues going on at the same time with her magical ability and her family. And I just love this series and this volume in particular because it says so much about family and friendship and what it means to really be somebody's friend, to really like them and want to be their friend and to support them and to stick with them through the good times and the bad. And I just really loved it. The last comic is Courtney Crumrin's Holiday by Ted Naifeh. This is the 4th installment in the Courtney Crumrin series, I believe. I keep misnumbering them. In this one, Courtney travels to Europe, to various places with her great uncle Aloysius, and basically she makes friends with this young man who is obviously a vampire, and she is, you know, under the vampiric spell and all that. And her great uncle, who has his own shiitake going on, isn't really paying attention to what's going on with Courtney, and shenanigans ensue. I mostly liked this particular volume because of the fleshing out of the relationship between Courtney and her great uncle a little bit more. Courtney is a little girl who is very strong-willed, very grumpy, and willing to say and do things when she's not supposed to, who really has no parental or adult supervision. Her parents are awful parents. They do not look after her at all. And her great uncle is her only other relative, and he's not really a parental figure either. I mean, he's probably the closest thing to adult supervision she really has, but he's not very good at it. And that's kind of pointed out in this one, that he's not really paying attention to her, and she really doesn't know what's going on with him either. So yeah, not my favorite in the series so far, but I did think there were some parts of it that were quite interesting for character development. Now for the non-comic stuff. I read Tales from Moomin Valley by Tove Jansson, which is a collection of 9 Moomin tales, and it was quite good. I did not have as high expectations for this being a short story collection. I just thought it would be some odds and ends, but there were actually some very thought-provoking and kind of dark stories in this that I liked, though I don't think I understood some of them. The Secret of the Hatafatners, for example, very atmospheric, very strange. I don't know what it was about, but it felt deep. There were a couple of others that I really enjoyed, and then the usual few that didn't do anything for me. So overall, this was good, and I feel like the Moomin stories later on in Jansson's life turned a little bit darker. Then there is Prime Meridian by Silvia and Moreno-Garcia. This is a science fiction novella, and I've been really looking forward to diving into it. Unfortunately, it felt really flat for me. I have enjoyed every novel that I have read by Moreno-Garcia so far. I think this was the 3rd or 4th thing I've read by her, and my expectations were pretty high at that point. And this just no. I think it was a combination of it turned out to be completely not what I expected, but I also found the main character to be unlikable, and I could never find myself interested in any aspect of her life despite acknowledging that she was unlikable and trying to get past that. So it's basically about a young woman in Mexico City who dreams of going off to Mars and joining in on like the colonization effort. And she's been planning on signing up for it for years, getting a seat and all of that, and it takes money. And so most of this novella is her trying to scrape by doing jobs and stuff. She's got a terrible relationship with her terrible sister. She's got an ex-boyfriend who shows up again in her life and can't tell if he's stalking her or if she's using him or if he's using her. And then she is kind of like a paid companion for an elderly woman who was formerly a like schlocky sci-fi movie starlet. And I just failed to care about most of it. I wasn't really interested in the old sci-fi movie vibe. There are these periodic movie script interludes, like scenes from one of those old style SF movies, and all I wanted to know was, when is she actually going to Mars? Like, this whole story just takes place in Mexico City with her running around trying to make money and all these interpersonal relationships, and then it ends right when I thought it was gonna get interesting. I finished it and was just like, that did not gel in any way for me. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think this was just sort of a miss for me, and I will enjoy other things by Moreno-Garcia in the future. And the last thing that I finished in November was Sideshow by Sheri S. Tepper. This is the final book in the Arbai trilogy. I buddy read this with Joe from Final Blow Joe. We've read all the books in this series together, and we really loved the previous one, Raising the Stones, and we're kind of hoping that Sideshow would do more of the same. We did not like it very much. We pretty much agreed on that. So I did an entire rant/review where I talked as non-spoilery as possible about the things I just didn't like about this novel. It didn't completely ruin Raising the Stones for me, but I'm gonna kind of just scrub Sideshow from my memory and enjoy Raising the Stones on its own. Like, as a standalone, that book is perfect just the way it is. It does not need this weird mess at the end of the trilogy. So yeah, you can go watch that video if you want to know more of my thoughts on that. And those are all the remaining things that I read in November. My reading has really slowed down in December, mostly because I've been very busy making videos and doing holiday prep and such, but hopefully I will have enough to talk about to do a at least brief December wrap up before the month is over as well. I usually do a lot of reading around Christmas and New Year's, but maybe not so much this year because I have less vacation time. We will see. But yeah, I may do an early wrap up. So let me know if you have read any of the books I talked about today. Leave me a comment down below, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video. And until then, bye.